Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow, and I'm kind of pissed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of pissed. I've just witnessed a prime example of the kind of misinformation that I have been talking about ad nauseum for years now in the cryptocurrency space. And I'm just going to get right to it. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. The tribalism, the greed, the dishonesty, just the pure garbage that people can put out with a smile on their face. And we're going to dive into it. I'm going to basically show you right here. So there's this article on Coindesk, and this is Coindesk.com. And this is an opinion piece, 23 blockchain predictions for 2023 by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Keys of Dharma Capital. And he apparently touts himself as a bit of an oracle, if you will, and really loves Ethereum. Okay. And this for whatever reason, this oracle likes to edit his posts in different times. And I'm going to show you something else. It was edited like a year later, apparently. And which I just don't trust that. I mean, what kind of oracle needs to go back and edit everything? Is it to fix inaccuracies in the oracle's predictions? I'm not sure. But ultimately, there's this big, long read, and it's very well written, and it's very well constructed, and ultimately makes a lot of legitimate sense until you get to a section here about, and I would encourage you to read it. Read the article. Go for it. Why not? Because I actually happen to agree with a lot of what Andrew wrote, to be frank, until we get to a point where he starts bashing. And it's so disgusting, but I'm going to read it. Zombie chains. This is section 16 of his predictive article. The remaining vaporware blockchains will finally lose their positions as top blockchains as even speculative money leaves their ecosystems. We already know that's not true because Cardano's just going off the charts with whale money recently. And we've seen that in a lot of different metrics. But that's okay. That's beside the point. For years, vaporware blockchains like EOS and Cardano have remained among the top blockchains as measured by market cap. That's his measure, apparently. That's the only thing he looks at is market cap. Cardano is in the top 10. EOS is in the top 40. I was never big on EOS either, so I get that. But some of the big fun guys were into it heavy, which I wish I could have steered them in a different direction. These projects are still riding off of hype in their earliest days, having undergone almost no ecosystem development despite the breakneck innovation happening across the rest of Web3. So there's been no ecosystem development in Cardano according to this gentleman. Flooring the misinformation. In the current depth of the bear market, Ethereum is maintaining roughly 1 billion in volume every 24 hours. Compare that to Cardano's 1 million and EOS $100,000 in daily volume. We should compare that because the volume is locked up from believers that are holding it. Because what you don't see and what we haven't seen are the number of nodes dropping dramatically. If anything, they've been kind of going up because people are accumulating and then they're setting up their nodes, they're pledging to their nodes, and other people are staking to their nodes for a passive yield. That's the beauty of proof of stake, the thing that Ethereum's been trying to play catch up on now for years. But still obviously don't have it right because you've got to lock up your Ethereum for God knows how long. Nobody even knows when it'll ever be released. So yeah, it's a different ecosystem altogether. But then to say that there's no ecosystem development which is funny because I'm pretty sure Cardano was just named the most active blockchain in the world, according to, I forget what source it was, where they basically measured GitHub commits, and it was #1 across the board, but there's no ecosystem development. Oh gosh, darn. I guess GitHub doesn't mean anything. And not only was it rated #1 for GitHub commits, but it was valuable commits, not just like, oh, we deleted a space and recommitted it, or we changed a period and committed it. No, these are developmental commits to the blockchain with a purpose. So yeah, this blows my mind, this guy. And then the volume, like I said, it's not trading as much because people are staking it. People are holding it. The bear market hasn't been kind to any network, but EOS has the unique standing of being responsible for the greatest value destruction based on original fundraising against current value at $4.2 billion lost. Neither chain is living up to the promises made to early consumers. And Ethereum has. We're going to get into that in a minute. And I beg to differ. Does this guy even know what Cardano is? I really do kind of. I mean, he's got to, or he wouldn't be putting it in this FUD piece. Anyway, in 2023, even the pre-initial coin offering institutional investors at the earliest retail investors will lose interest. I don't even know what this guy's talking about now. The death knell will toll for these vaporware blockchains as they finally lose the last remaining mainstream supporters under the undeniable lack of on-chain adoption. EOS, I think he's right. Cardano, I think this guy's delusional. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a big fanboy of Cardano. This is so nonsensical. So anyway, what is this guy? This is his 16 Ethereum predictions from a crypto oracle. This guy's an oracle. He sees the future. He knows all. But if you were to have read this in December 29th of 2020 at 11 a.m. when he originally wrote it, well, I'm guessing you'll find it much different when he updated it on September 14th of 2021. And I'm wondering if, I don't know what's changed, because if I go back to Wayback Machine, for whatever reason, this wasn't even indexed until September 14th. Now, this updated note is by Coindesk, basically saying this article was updated, about a year after it was written. For whatever reason, this is also when it was locked in and indexed by Wayback Machine. I find that kind of odd. There's no point in even getting into any of this because, whether it's true or not now, it doesn't really matter. I wanted to know what the guy said back in 2020. But we'll never know because he edited it and it wasn't indexed by anything or anybody until he edited it. So who is this guy? Well, ultimately, this guy is a big fund operator, a flagship fund. So Andrew Keys joins Dharma Capital as managing partner. Okay, so the guy basically runs the ship, apparently. And Dharma's goal is to provide quantitative, systematic alpha generation of Web3 protocols. And of course, he wants to do that on Ethereum for whatever reason, likely because they have a significant investment in Ethereum, and it makes sense for them to FUD anything they could deem as a competitor. Why he lumped Cardano in with EOS, I don't understand, quite honestly. But he did, and it's all nonsense. I don't know if there was a true statement given to Cardano in this guy's piece. So his flagship fund is an Ether optimized long strategy with over $100 million under management. So I'm guessing this gentleman has $100 million invested into Ethereum. He doesn't like Cardano catching up. So, and I was doing a little bit more digging and I'm thinking, okay, well, what was going on? What has been the track record? Because Cardano launched in 2017. Here we are in 2022. It is basically maintained for the most part, albeit a little slow. It's been maintaining its roadmap and its development cycles as it relates to the roadmap. It's been achieving all kinds of things of which myself and many other YouTubers are constantly talking about. Not to mention its growth on every front, from dApps being developed and new projects being developed. And here's the thing. Well, we're going to go into this. So 5 years ago this week, now this was written in 2020, okay? But this is going to go into a little bit of the history, okay? You can read this article, you can look it up, but on July 20th of 2016, when the upgrade to restore user funds was executed, the Ethereum blockchain was split in two. So this is basically Ethereum was created and it launched, and then the DAO launched on Ethereum and basically stole millions of dollars worth of people's money. Okay. And in order to try and get the money back and correct the issue, apparently they didn't have any real way of doing it, so they had to fork Ethereum Classic into the Ethereum we now know and love. And that was just one of many over the course of just a series of a few years. Since the split, the Ethereum network has hard forked 7 additional times, though none of these subsequent upgrades have reached the same level of controversy as the DAO fork of 2016. And Ethereum Classic remains to have support from a lot of developers and things. I think even Charles Hoskinson has some involvement in the original Ethereum Classic. I don't know what kind of financial stake he has, but they've been working on it and doing different things with it. We just don't hear that much about it because a lot of the big money, the investment money, the VC money has all gone into Ethereum. And you know, so yeah, that's why we hear about it all the time. The first dApp on Ethereum to gain any real user traction was the collectibles game known as CryptoKitties. Do you remember CryptoKitties, folks? This was Ethereum's big claim to fame back in the day. And it got so popular that a backlog of 30,000 transactions had piled up by December of 2017, which is... This is about when I first got into crypto, was December of 2017, meaning that users would have to wait days for their transfers of Ethereum to be confirmed. And I'm sure the fees were astronomical as well. And that was just the first, several years. Developers are still convinced that the current blockchain infrastructure is wholly inadequate to handle an influx of millions, if not billions, of users around the world. And how did they try to address that after years of painstaking work trying to upgrade Ethereum? Well, they came up with Ethereum 2.0. And how has Ethereum 2.0 worked out so far? And, it's funny because when you're comparing something like Ethereum, which let's all give credit where credit is due, Ethereum is the reason that the vast majority of us are in the crypto space today because of its innovation at the time. But when you think about how the technology continues to evolve and has continued to evolve since Ethereum's launch, we obviously are going to see more advanced technology form. Okay. And we always call Bitcoin first generation, Ethereum second generation, and Cardano third generation. Maybe there'll be a fourth or fifth, but I'm doubting it. Why? Because the third generation technology is still being perfected, and there's nobody doing it the way Cardano is doing it, with real development teams of hundreds of people working together to achieve these various milestones in peer-reviewed studies, peer-reviewed methods that are ultimately making sure that it's solid when it launches. And the only kind of FUD that a lot of these Ethereum moon boys and these Ethereum whales and these Ethereum investors and all of that, the only stuff they could ever come up with is stuff like, oh, there was a problem with Cardano and its test net. Really? That's what you've got? You've got testnet bugs? And so then, those issues are resolved in testnet before being launched on mainnet. The difference is it has a testnet that it tests things and fixes issues before they hit mainnet. What does Ethereum do? Well, they just do another hard fork. And they just kind of, go by the seat of their pants. And it's a bunch of guys that are all working together and they're trying to code a bunch of innovative stuff, but it never seems to quite work out the way intended. But for whatever reason, Cardano does. And there are some deficiencies, in my opinion, in Cardano, but those are also deficiencies that are being addressed and worked on as part of the roadmap. So far, everything that's launched has been going pretty well. And these plans for things like Hydra, which everybody knows I'm waiting for, are pretty significant. And if I were to look at some of the old charts showing the dApp growth on Ethereum back in the day when it first started, how many of those dApps are still active and around and working as intended today? How many of those dApps were nothing more than farts in the wind or ideas that somebody threw together because they learned some solidity and called it a dApp, but it really didn't do anything? How much crap in that DApp ecosystem that was the original DApp ecosystem of Ethereum, how much of it was worth anything? And if you compare that to a lot of the applications that are coming out on Cardano, the beauty of coming in as a third generation technology that's far superior to something like Ethereum is the very fact that a lot of this stuff has a purpose. It has a real use case. It's not just a lot of silliness being thrown on a blockchain. Why? Because it's not easy to develop on Cardano right now. It is for some who are already established programmers, and a lot of these programmers are able to use things like Marlowe and Marlowe's Playground and things to be able to code in a language that they understand. They don't necessarily have to develop everything in Haskell, but that's the foundational programming language of Cardano, and they did that for a multitude of reasons, but primarily because it's more secure than a lot of this garbage that other blockchains have been being developed on, which is also why we see so many hacks and so many problems on so many of them. They are just not as secure. So, I could go down, and maybe I will. Let me know in the comments below. Do you want me to do a really in-depth side-by-side analysis of Ethereum's growth, their pros, their cons, their problems over the years since inception, and how that compares to Cardano? Is that something that I need to do to really spell it out for people so that they don't read garbage like this and think, oh wow, Cardano must be bad because this really rich guy with a smug smile on his face as he writes his FUD pieces says it is. It must be vaporware because this guy that manages, no offense to Mike Novogratz, but he got a freaking Luna tattoo on his arm. Just because these guys are wealthy doesn't mean they know shit. I'm sorry. And Novogratz is a hell of a smart guy in his world, but he's still learning a lot. I mean, he was big on EOS. He went huge on EOS when it came out. Where is that now? He is obviously big in Luna, got the Luna tattoo on his arm, for God's sake. I thought it was a joke or a Photoshop, but apparently it was real, and I felt sorry for him. And I've cracked some jokes at Novogratz, but I respect Novogratz, and I appreciate his role in the space. I appreciate that he's in it, and he's trying to do well. But when these guys say something, it doesn't mean it's gospel, and it doesn't make it true. And quite frankly, this guy's no authority in the crypto space. Just because he has some friends and he knows some people, and he probably, I'm guessing, comes from some sort of traditional market background. And, Ethereum, I'm sure, is going to continue to do well for some time. But eventually, I'm pretty confident that Cardano's going to flip it. And it is what it is. But it doesn't, just because I feel the way I do and millions of others feel the same way about Cardano, doesn't necessarily mean that we need to start putting out FUD pieces trying to tear Ethereum down. The problem is that by having to defend Cardano for what it really is against all of this nonsensical garbage that a lot of these big whales put out because they hold Ethereum and probably have, and they're invested in a lot of other projects and applications associated with that blockchain. Can they not grow their operation? And can the technology not grow and make these people wealthier on their own merits without having to FUD and spread misinformation about a competing application or a competing blockchain or a competing anything? Why does it have to be this way? That's the question. Because when you have to resort to crap like this to try and push your narrative and to kind of build your own sustainability in the market, that tells me you're coming from a place of weakness. Anytime you have to point the finger at something else and point out any issues that it may have, or just flat out make stuff up, that is coming from a place of weakness, because strength doesn't have to really do that. In this case, I'm going to take up for Cardano and basically oust this FUD garbage, because that's exactly what it is. And there's no place for stuff like this in the space. This is the kind of shit that gives Cardano problems. This is the kind of stuff that creates negativity around projects that do not merit the negativity. And why does this kind of stuff mean so much to me? Because I've been seeing it since 2017. I've been seeing guys like this come and go in the space, trying to FUD other projects that are competing with the bags they hold dear. And this stuff has always gotten my goat, because it's dishonest, it's misinformation, and it's complete and utter bullshit. So make up your own opinions, do your own research, but don't listen to the guys like this that have $100 million invested in an ecosystem that's going to come out with a bunch of garbage about something they apparently don't really know much about. Read a book, dude. That's really all I can tell you, because you obviously have no idea what you're talking about. Trying to compare Ethereum to Cardano is like comparing apples to peaches, let alone oranges. They're very, very different animals altogether. One tastes better than the other right now until Ethereum really gets its head out of its own ass and is able to come up with technology that works and has some pretty good throughput, scalability, some interoperability. It's never going to hold a candle to Cardano outside of having first market advantage. And that's it. I'm sorry, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. If things change in the future, I don't know. Maybe you guys can throw some more money at another project. Like maybe you'll find your next FTX that you can pay and have a bunch of FUD put out about Cardano in the future, and it'll help your bags grow in the next bull run. But until then, how about we just leave it to the merits of the technology? Because all of this stuff is easily disproven with on-chain metrics that you can pull up just about anywhere. I was going to pull them up here, but honestly, I feel like I have so many times already. I don't know. Maybe you should give it a shot. Until next time, guys, crow your coins. I'll see you soon.